Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and the meme coin market, and any other way we can make some or a lot of money on the internet. We've got a bunch of interesting topics ready to discuss today. We've got Tether announcing Tether AI, a product to enable peer-to-peer network of AI agents. We'll explain what that means later in the show. We've got Solana validators urgently fixing a bug which could have led to unlimited minting of certain tokens. Got Bread to explain the technicalities of what is going on Solana there. It felt like a bit of a precarious situation, but solved quickly. And then finally, on the meme coin side of things, I do think things are heating up. Elon Musk profile picture change sends Gork towards 100 million before pull back to 65 million. We've got a lot of things moving on the Boop side as well. If you don't know what Boop is, we will be discussing that in a bit more detail, even as an interesting discussion point today. The new launch pad, new meme coin launch pad by Dingling, former Binance employee and launcher of PancakeSwap. We've also got the latest on general price action on crypto and NFTs, and we are ready to get into it. But just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is really, really risky, and we don't know anything for sure. So please proceed with caution, exercise your own judgment, and what's the final one? Maybe do some of your own research, potentially. That's one final idea for you all. With that out of the way, got Bread, got Legendary in the co-host seats with me. Bread, it's Monday. It's the 5th of May. You just had a weekend, allegedly. Did you end the week? Did you take some time off? How are you doing? How are you feeling? Ready for this new week?
Yeah. Hey, buddies. Yeah, it's a good weekend for me. Pretty chill, actually. I spent a lot of time just hanging out. We actually, you weren't on. No, it was just me and Legendary Friday. The missus is coming down with some sickness that I coincidentally gave her when she came back from traveling. I was sick. She came home. She got sick, but she was still recovering from that. Like, it hit her pretty hard. So it was a slow weekend. Just ended up enjoying a little bit of the weather, walking around. Yeah, being lazy, basically watching a lot of movies and stuff. I actually put out a post yesterday that so I binged Dune 1 and 2. Awesome, right? It's a good show, good movie. I wanted to see, like, oh, it's Dune 3 coming. Like, I'm all excited, and I started like Googling it. It's like, is there a trailer that I can watch? I'm sure that by now there's got to be one, and I cannot. There's so, like, AI is so good these days that everyone is spinning up their own trailers, and I couldn't, like, it was so hard to figure out how many were like fan-made bullshit trailers and how many were actually real ones. So I need someone to spin up a protocol real quick and just like tell me which ones are real, because it was annoying trying to figure out if there's an actual Dune trailer out, which I don't think there is. Dune 3. So that was part of my weekend.
We need provenance. We need the officially minted NFT to determine provenance for these trailers. I want to come back to you on something that you said, Brad, but just throwing it to Legendary first. Ledge, Brad mentioned nice weather. I'm wondering, we keep making a list of indicators here for where we are in the market. People going back to the gym, people are drinking juices every day. People are, things are getting calmer, nicer. Maybe a little bit of lifestyle creep potentially. What do you think about this weather situation? Are people going to be just chilling? Are people going to be selling in May and going away, or buying in May and praying? That's the alternative. How are you kind of thinking about the nice weather you're in at the moment?
GM. I think the last couple of years, or last 2 or 3 years, didn't really have sell in May and go away situations. Yes, summer was a bit dull, but definitely not to leave the market at the start of May. Weather is an interesting indicator. I have changed backgrounds again, left Dubai. Now I'm in Spain for a bit to cool off after the Dubai heat, so to speak. But funnily, it's now hotter in Vienna. It was, at least over the weekend. Vienna hit 30 degrees, which is insane that early in May. And this week is cooling off to like 6 degrees. So there's a lot of variance in weather. There's a lot of variance in meme coins. But I think it's the latter that we'll talk about on the show more.
I feel like anyone who would ordinarily sell in May and go away, by the time, anyone who would preach that in this space, by the time it actually gets to May, they start thinking, this feels like this meme coin stuff's heating up now. I don't really think I can leave, right? Brad, did you want to come in there?
So, yeah. So one thing, love Spain. You said you're in, where are you at?
Somewhere in the south.
Somewhere in the south, Andalusia region. I hope. I love it. Seville, Granada, my favorite spaces, literally in the whole world. I tried really hard to make the Megeth program go there. It's just going to be hot as shit. So we're like, all right, it will be fun, but it's going to be blistering hot here in like June. So like, no. So awesome. Love it. What else were we talking about? It was
Selling may or go away or
so,
buying
yeah,
may.
sell in May. So I looked at a chart recently that showed like, yeah, sell in May is actually the typical trend. But if you look at Trump's last presidency, 3 of the 4 Mays were up numbers instead of down at numbers. So bucking the trend, you might say.
Giving us some hope, Brett. A little bit of hopium to start the show. Don't mind that at all. Don't mind that at all. Okay.
Yeah, and like on top of that, like again, this place is seeing a lot of structural good things coming our way just across the board. I actually listened to a podcast this weekend, and they're like the disconnection between like market sentiment and just like the amount of good things that are coming, that are like just like in the industry, right? Whether it's like the government like openly admitting that they're going to be buying a shit ton of Bitcoin, or they just say it's the equivalent of gold and they would acquire literally as much as possible, which is something that they said. They're like, yeah, like it wasn't even just like, oh, we like it. It's like, we want to acquire it the same way that you acquire gold or oil, where it's like there's never enough. Like Trump's administration has straight up said that.
Yeah.
So like whenever you have stuff like that is out there in the ether, it's kind of hard to look at it and say like, you know what, we're gonna have some issues.
I agree. And we're going to get straight into the main stuff, maybe a final reflection before we do. I'm really confident in one of my takes, which is something like, I think the disconnect arises from something like, now that we have all the clarity, it exposes all the stuff that with clarity shouldn't have ever existed in the first place. And sometimes people can muddy the waters when it's like not clear, because people can always hope that in a different universe, this would work out for XYZ reason. Whereas once you then take those excuses away, you actually have just the plain naked truth. It's like, oh, this is actually not a good product, or not a good protocol, or not a good chain. And so you kind of get exposed in that way. I think that's probably what's happening a little bit.
Yeah, I had the thought this weekend. It's not an original thought. Someone else has mentioned it. Stablecoins encroaching on like Ethereum's moneyness, all this stuff. But like, that was, as I think about it more, smart contract platforms were meant to, in my mind, like they're going to be appealing for a lot of TradFi because they bring yield. And it's like, that's going to be a really attractive proposition for these people. And I'm like, well, if you look at everything that is done on chain, like this, that's the source of the yield, right? All the activity on chain then gives you the yield, and then you take the yield. Like that's what they're going to like. But then I realized recently, it's like, what if the yield that they want is their own yield? And that's what stablecoins are, right? Stablecoins is just them bringing dollars on chain and getting treasury yield, getting, bonds, like all this shit right there. They're basically getting the yield that they've already had all their life. It's just like they want a better way to trade what they already have, not like the shit that we're doing on chain, right? Not this like small, new, fresh thing. They're just like, I just want the thing that I'm already doing, that I'm already familiar with, just more of it, and I want to be able to do it better. Good, done. Like stablecoins, up only, and that's not the bull case I was hoping for. It's not as sexy as like thinking that like we're gonna redefine the economy with all of our smart contracts and all this other stuff. It's just like they just want their own shit, everything that's normal, just like but on chain, done.
I mean, that's what Telegram did last week, basically, when we talked about the news with the 500 mil fund that was just tokenizing corporate debt. I still feel though that's it's a very legit thought. I very much agree with it, but I still think it then will allow to connect things that weren't connected previously. Like maybe you will be able to borrow against your tokenized corporate debt that you're lending against, or borrowing against, depending on what side of the market you are, and then use that and connect it with the bonds protocol to do something else with that. So it might connect basically otherwise in TradFi insulated bits and pieces of the market together via smart contracts and like form products that would have not existed previously, which is still cool, I guess.
Did you see Pix's his thread or tweet about tokenized student loan debt? And there's like he's like, and the biggest surprise of that, like one is like, okay, cool, whatever, tokenized student debt, fine, I accept that. But then he said that it's on EDU chain, like that's a thing. like EDU chain, like a
Yeah,
school chain or something?
something coming out of Animoca. They've got this open campus
Yeah, what the
project,
fuck?
which
I
is
like
trying to innovate in the
never heard of it.
education sector. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. But arguably, that's no different to. I mean, it's a very different industry, but the concept is the same as Wildcat, which is just
Yep.
like bringing private credit on chain. Just like, look, here is a bunch of debt that someone needs, and we're just going to open it up. Like that's one of the best things about crypto, right? Just going to
Mhm.
open it up. Who wants to now service this debt? Whether it's a university, whether it's a student, whether it's Wintermute on Wildcat, you're lending to people like that. So that's one of the best cases as well. But there'll be all kinds of nightmares that come out of that when people start defaulting and not paying back. But that's the reality of that market as well. Interesting way to kick off the show. But look, let's get into the main headlines to catch you up. There's a lot going on over the weekend, although majors might have been a little bit quiet, but there's a lot of stuff bubbling under the hood, I think. So let's get into it today, starting with the majors. We've got Bitcoin down just 1% to 94K. We've got ETH chilling 1.8K. XRP down 7%. Oh, sorry, that's just down 1% as well to $2.16. Got BNB flat at 593. Solana is at 144. Getting into the meme coin, or the traditional meme coins side of things. So traditional that they're on the meme coin section in CoinGecko, but I know we've got some new emerging ones too. Doge is down 1%. Pepe is flat. Trump is flat. Bonk is up 4%. Pengu is up 7% actually. WIF is down a couple of percent. Turbo is up 8%. Popcat's up a couple of percent. Got to say, this stuff is just like up and down a little bit. Virtuals is actually up a lot. Again, AXBT is up 13%. I'll feature virtuals again in a second. To be honest, I think the meme coin action is moving to this new batch, which we will talk about in just a second. Getting into the headlines themselves, we've got Tether announcing Tether AI, which is a product to enable peer-to-peer network of AI agents. Let's just note that the screen's not sharing at the moment. Solana validators have urgently fixed a bug which could have led to unlimited minting of certain tokens. Very interested to hear Brett explain what happened there in just a little bit. If you want to know what ETH's bull case is, I guess it's something to do about being very, very reliable, I hope. Elon Musk profile picture change sent Gork, one of the new tokens, towards 100 mil before a pullback to 65 mil. And some other notable price action. This is what I mean about the newer stuff, maybe moving a bit harder. Housecoin was back up 9% to 75 mil. The Boop coins started moving. Remember Boop being the new meme coin launchpad by Dingaling, former Binance creator of PancakeSwap. Boop was up 30% to 320 mil. The new runner there was Pork, which ran to 11 mil before pullback to 5.5. I know it's not huge at the moment, but the interesting thing we're going to discuss in a moment is this staking mechanism where if you are staking Boop, you get a little slice of all of these runners. So we're going to be discussing if we think that's good or just to what extent we value that investment. Berachain in L1 news struggles. It's down 20% on the week now, dipping below $3. Sui is actually up against the other majors. We spoke about the other ones being more or less flat today. Sui was up 7%. Huge positivity coming out of Sui Basecamp, to be honest. Sui Basecamp happened next to Token 2049. There were a lot of people who made their way there. I didn't get to go there on the ground. Spoke to a lot of people who went and said, kind of reminiscent of that one Solana breakpoint when everything started getting super positive for Solana. I think people were really, really positive about that. So I wanted to just share that. And then virtuals, as I said, on the AI side on base is up another 13% on the day, up 40% on the week. Stuff's really cooking over there again. That's the headlines and some notable price action. Ledge, just checking in with you. Is there anything we need to know on the NFT side?
Yeah, absolutely. On the one hand, there's been a couple nice sales that you pointed out. CryptoPunk with the top hat, which sold for 63.5 ETH, but also on the Good Vibes Club, there's still a lot of volume happening in the collection. A very rare one, an electric one, sold for 11.69 ETH. In terms of the major collections, most of them are pretty flat. There's two notable movements to point out. One is over the last week, which is to do with Doodles. Doodles are up 17.8% over the last week at a 3.63 ETH floor.
They've got the Doge token coming, right? Just so people know.
Exactly. That token is coming closer and closer. And then Chimpers, they are up a lot on the day. They're up 28% on the day. 16% on the week, however, only, and they are at a 0.5 ETH floor now.
Nice. Shout out to the Chimpers, one of my earliest supporters as a creator. Really, really nice guys over there. Glad to see them doing well still. They're super consistent, crushing it. Really some interesting partnerships they've been signing as well recently. Okay, so that's the NFT side. Let's just get you up to speed with some other news. There's some interesting bits here. Dubai Family Office to invest $8.8 billion in the Maldives to build a blockchain and digital assets financial hub. That's a huge amount of money. That's a pretty huge amount of money to
It's
just.
the one thing they're not short of over there.
They are not short of it at all. But it sounded very much, when I read the full article, sounded like Maldives want to diversify out of tourism and fishing. So they've allowed themselves to be bought for 8.8 billion, where they're going to build this colossal thing there and just maybe get some crypto hub activity going. So not a bad option if you're trying to diversify as a country. Brown University, I like this. Brown University buys $4.9 million of Bitcoin through an ETF, representing just over 2% of its equity portfolio. I was thinking about this. These universities are in an interesting position. Whilst all of these states are getting bogged down in the House and the Senate, and then, getting things approved. And, in the next piece of news, you'll see the Arizona governor vetoed the BTC reserve legislation after it was actually passed by the House and the Senate. So the stuff on the state side seems to be getting bogged down a bit. People are not necessarily passing things through either in the House or the Senate, or in this case for Arizona, even though it was passed, it got vetoed at the very last stage. Whereas these universities and other institutions, may not have the same level of difficulty from an administrative perspective to just get these things over the line. So good for them getting it over the line. This is a really niche piece of news. I don't know if you guys remember, former scammer Gabagool found working as an anon for Clanker on base. Team realizes and dismisses him. Interesting story here. When he was found out, I was due to interview him on that day. I was about to interview him on that morning, Gabagool, because he was a creator. Like, he was like writing really well. He had a huge following at the time, and I'd started out doing interviews of various people. And he was like someone who I was chatting to as like someone who was a good writer, had a good voice, and seemed to be.
When he was Gabagool, or when he was this current person?
No. When he was Gabagool, before he got done. And on the day of the interview, I messaged him, like, the time was there, and I like opened the Zoom link or whatever it was we were using back then. And I was like, hey, like, are you coming? You haven't turned up. Like, is everything okay? He's like, oh, I've just got something to deal with. Like, I'm sorry, I can't make it. And then it came out literally the next day that all of his stealing from, I think it was Velodrome that he was a contributor to, all of it came out literally the next day. So the thing that he was busy with was crime, or trying to cover up crime at the time.
I didn't know about this at all up until yesterday, and I saw the lore getting dumped by Alexander, the creator of Aerodrome. He's like, the this is a person. Yeah, he's like, this is a person who was inside our team, damn near destroyed our entire protocol. He, we found out he stole those funds from us. We never got all of them back. He did that shit. And like, he was on Vice as like a person that was like advocating for security, all this stuff. Like, this guy has such fucking balls to be able to do this stuff. And honestly,
then it's even worse than that, Brad. On Vice, he's talking about how the space is so greedy.
Yeah.
He's talking about how the space is so greedy and how you've got to do these things to mitigate it, whilst he was stealing the funds to like fund his perp trading addiction.
Yeah, he was addicted to, he's a degenerate, right? He's gambling and shit, lost that. So he does that, goes away, creates a new account, and now it was part of the Clanker team, apparently, was one of the founding members. And the guy takes on Alex as his name, his pseudonym, which is the name of Alexander, the previous Velodrome founder, or Aerodrome founder. So he's like, he stole the name of the person he just like robbed, and then used that to create a new persona, starts like getting some prominence in the space. And then said apparently that he went to this FarCon event and just like expected no one to recognize him. And and Alexander was there, and he's like, yeah, that's the guy that, like, you're the one that did all this shit to us. And then, next day they announced it and kicked him out. I was unaware of him in either instance, but yeah, apparently he had a pretty decent presence.
I bought his NFT, sold a few for some profit. I was holding one
Mm,
because I thought it might have been useful in the future. Um,
mm.
that's the rite of passage for any crypto media entity or people. You gotta, whether you like it or not, at some point, someone will have committed some crime that you've either interviewed or that you will interview. I think that's one of the things you just got to accept at this point. Okay. And in the other bits of news, which I think were very interesting, Boop was featured on Binance Alpha. They're going to get a little bit of an airdrop for eligible Binance users. Hyperliquid fee system goes live with different discounts for different bands of Hype stakers. Hype's still pretty strong. It's now above $20. So still holding strong there. I'm holding all of the clips that I bought between $12 and $17 or so. Feel like that's pretty comfy at the moment, at least. Although I think maybe Bitcoin's being, markets in general being a bit shaky here. It doesn't
Yeah, I
seem
wish
to
it'd
want to
pull
go
back,
to.
to be, if I'm being honest. And I never deployed for the reasons I called out all last week. And you know, if it pulls back a little bit, I wouldn't be too mad about it. Even though on these pullbacks, hype isn't seeming to give up very much. I'm hoping for it.
Yeah, the smartest money account, what's his name? Smart money account, smartest money.
Smartest money. Yeah.
He's shared a chart of like how things have gone for all of these alts, and hype is just outperforming everything basically. Okay, and then the final piece of news: Mythical Games on Polkadot reveals it's generated $650 million of transaction volume. I think that's to do with CS:GO skins, but a lot of activity on Polkadot. So well done to them. Mythical Games really crushing it. They've got the FIFA Rivals game coming, the NFL Rivals game live, and they've got the Pudgy Penguins game coming in the summer. So a lot of activity going on in the Polkadot ecosystem. Okay, that is the roundup. That's everything you need to know. I think there's a bunch of interesting things here. Unless I'm going to give you a chance, boys. Anything that you really want to, we're going to get into the main headlines in a sec. Anything that you really want to call out? Otherwise, I want to do a little bit of a discussion on Boop.
Yes, I have to touch on something because I feel like
Yes,
this Dubai story is the most insane story I've heard in a while if you look at the numbers. So you said it perfectly. It's an investment of $8.8 billion into the Maldives, who are heavily, heavily dependent on obviously tourism and fisheries. And this investment is more than their GDP. Their
yeah,
GDP
yeah,
is $6.5 billion.
yeah,
And they have a master plan that says, so by the fifth year, they plan by this investment to triple the country's GDP. Like, this is such an insane level. To invest more in a country which is plagued by debt, and I think they were on the brink of defaulting as a country, to invest more than the country's GDP, and to say, look, by giving you guys crypto exposure, by building this hub, creating 16,000 jobs, etc., there is a reasonable and realistic chance that we'll be able to triple up your GDP within 5 years, which is nothing, which is such a short period of time.
yeah.
Extremely ambitious. I am very, very curious to see this unfold. And I've never seen any investment like this if you put the numbers next to one another.
I always like seeing the small countries do a little FAFO energy. Like, you know, San Marino is notorious for it. There's a couple of these, like Cyprus, I think, is one that comes up occasionally. There's like these really small countries that are just like, yeah, fuck it. Like, we're gonna like double down on this stuff because they're so agile.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. I always wonder though what people give up for this. I wonder whether, like, for example, when China goes in and builds a bunch of these countries' infrastructure. Remember on the show the other day, I looked up live that Sri Lankan port. They sign all kinds of deals with people similar to this, where I don't know, someone's going to be financing something. It's a loan, or if it's some type of financing. But in the end, the terms for these things are going to be extraordinary, and to the extent that, well, in this case, it seems like it's such a huge investment relative to the country, relative to the country's GDP. And so whilst described as an investment, sounds to me like some takeover, to be honest. You're going to provide more than the country's GDP worth of investment. You're basically in charge now. This sounds like the expansion of a Dubai family office to take an island in the Maldives, and they're going to get to decide what happens in the Maldives now because they've just provided so much funding. So I think that's kind of how this stuff works, whether people like it or not. And so we'll see. we'll see how that plays out. I have no particular view. Maybe that's the right thing to do if they want to try to create a different economy now and with different dependencies. Let me set up this Boop conversation, because this is the interesting discussion point for me today. We're going to talk about a bunch of other headlines which are important, but the discussion point for today is kind of stems from this tweet from Ansem. Now, remember, Boop is I mentioned it already a few times, but if you just joined, the launchpad by Dingaling, former Binance, former creator of PancakeSwap. It's intended to be a competitor to Pump Fund. Pump Fund's had its own way, just making millions of dollars all the time on the meme coin side. And this is an attempt to take some of that market share by letting people participate in the upside of the platform. Pump Fund do not have a token, right? Boop have come to market by saying we will have a token, and you're going to get some. You're going to see some of the tokens come back to you if you stake. So Ansem said this. He said, Boop Fund is one of the only pump competitors I could see impacting the launchpad landscape, as all the other clones have failed to provide any incentive for traders outside of copy pasting the UI. If stakers can be the house, then this becomes attractive for the gamblers and the sideliners unwilling to trade these coins or spend any time in the trenches. There are a lot of people who would love exposure to meme coins, don't actually want to trade them themselves because they're bad at trading them, or they're just not online in the way that you need to be online to trade this stuff effectively. So it's been apparent that meme coins have been the biggest trend this cycle, but few ways to own upside in the casino. So the argument here is that is what Boop.fund provides, because it allows you to stake your Boop, and then you get this proportion of the coins that are launched and graduated that flow to you. To demonstrate what that looks like, Dingaling shared this tweet where he said, there's only 52 million staked Boop right now. If you had 52,000 Boop, which is $13,000 staked, you would have received a $300 airdrop in Pork. So Pork is the one that I mentioned as well. In the snapshot, it ran to like $11 million. Yesterday, it's pulled back to about 5.5 or 6 now. He said, anyone good at math want to calculate the APY on that? This is just one token. What happens when we go back to multiple 8-digit runner days? So someone in the comments said this, rough math, $300 return on 13,000. Annualized, that's 27.6%, but that's obviously only with one token. Like, the idea would be, or the upside that I guess if you're bullish on meme coins still and that activity coming back would be, what if there are 4 tokens per day? What if there are 6 tokens per day? What if there are 8 tokens per day going to 10 million plus? Then how much am I earning from my $10,000? So this tweet actually went out. When was this? In the morning, and I think basically Boop has run since then. I think we've gone up to 320 mil now. I think went as high as 340. It was as low as 200 something yesterday. So I think this idea is catching on with people. People are liking it. I like it as well. I'm curious what you think about this mechanism. I kind of like it. I bought like a very small amount this morning because, I mean, it had already run and I was like, I don't want to buy it this high. But it dipped a little bit and I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy a touch here. And then hopefully it goes down a lot. I saw a tweet by Serp Bread and he'd bought like 100K between 200 mil and 200 something mil. I would love a dip back into that region. Bearing in mind, there's all kinds of sell pressure to come, right? This is the additional things you need to think about. Stakers are going to get these tokens. They're going to likely sell them. So maybe that makes it harder for runners to run because those runners are going to be going to stakers and that's kind of their yield. So they're probably going to sell some of their yield at least. And then the second thing to note is, as part of the sign up process, everyone or creators or prominent creators were given the option to launch their own token. And if they did, they had this huge allocation. Some people sitting on potentially 6 figures worth of Boop coming to them. So that's potential sell pressure as well. Whether that comes in 10 days, 20 or 30, it's hard to calculate. So just bear that in mind. But as far as this staking mechanism goes and how it's all set up, very curious for your guys' thoughts? Maybe I'll go to Brett first. I know you've been writing on this a lot, then come to you, Ledge.
Yeah, we had some technical issues, but we covered it pretty heavily on Friday, which I think was the day after it came out, or
Yep.
maybe the next morning. Yeah, I got pilled by the actual tokenomics. Like I'm very skeptical of anyone encroaching on what a pump fund is able to do for a lot of the reasons, right? It's sticky, it's got the brand, it's got the industrial infrastructure, frankly, around it for people to launch and like scam on these things, bundle launch them. But the mechanics of the tokenomics are pretty damn appealing for me as someone who is not even interested in trenching at all, right? And that's kind of what Ansem was pointing out there.
Yeah.
So I initially had like made the decision. I was like, you know what? Like I was like a tier 3 person at the time of my claim. It was something like $80,000 worth of token to get. And it's like, you know what? It's like it's probably gonna be worth like $5 by the time I can claim it. 30 days. I'm not gonna pump this thing. I'm not gonna do whatever. I'm gonna avoid it. So I even posted. I was like here's the game theory was my first post. My second post was like I'm good. Like I'm just gonna skip it all together. And then after that I started doing some more research into the tokenomics. I drew up the little graph. Like I started actually like explaining it, and I was like, yeah, it's actually pretty appealing. Like if like same thing as Ansem, there's like I actually kind of do want exposure to something like this, because if there is going to be something that encroaches on it, like it's going to be something like this, and it comes with someone that's they got this little flywheel going. Like, you know, why wouldn't smaller accounts want to try to do it? So I, being a Kaido creator, as you have described us, like, you know, I doubled back and I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because I want exposure to this thing, and I don't want to spend $90,000 to gamble on it. And like, who knows what that'll be worth in the 20 something days. But it's like, I would take that amount of exposure to this protocol because I do think it's actually pretty smart. It's well put together. There's actually a greater than zero chance that this token is worth something in 30 days. So like, it's like, if I'm going to, I want exposure, and that's how I'm going to do it. So I end up getting, trying to get my claim through that, and also through like the wallet. If you tied, for other people who may still be able to do this, if you have a Kaido address, you can check. Or sorry, if you have a Kaido Solana address tied to your account, if you check that on Boop, you may have a smaller allocation associated to that address, not just your Twitter account. So I did that, and that is like if you just buy half a sol on an unbonded token, you get your claim on that. So that was like $5,000 right now at current prices. So I did that claim, bought and sold the 0.5, got my 0.5 back, and then I just staked the 15,000 Boop that I was given for that. So I've had $5,000 staked since the protocol launched, and like the pork thing dropped. At current prices, I have $300, which is, you know, nothing, a couple percent, but $300 worth of just various tokens, fees from the protocol, all just in that amount. So yeah, it's appealing.
It's not bad,
It's
though,
the reason back in. It's what?
I like it's just not bad at all. Like, it's pretty interesting. I'm pretty sure it was Dingaling tweet that it's like the BNB for meme coins.
Yeah,
like
it's very similar.
You know, you stake your BNB if you're on Binance, and then you get all these rewards that come to you over time from the people who launch with them. Just copying that model, I think. Very interesting stuff. We're curious to track. So you've had 5K staked from the beginning.
Yeah, I just did it. It's like, it's a small amount. It's like, I'm just gonna throw it in there and like see what this feels like. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Ledge, what about you? How important is the founder here? I definitely take a bit of comfort from the fact that it's Dingaling, super well respected, super serious builder, obviously being former Binance. And I did not know this until it's recently appeared in his bio, the founder of PancakeSwap, which is one of the main one of the main exchanges on BNB. So pretty significant. What are your thoughts on everything we've just discussed as it relates to Boop?
Yeah, I think on the founder is significant, obviously. I mean, Dingaling is extremely active in this space, has invested in numerous companies, did PancakeSwap, was also heavily connected to Luxrare, which ultimately did not end up doing too well. So Dingaling is a legend in this space, and I'm not too basically smaller his achievements. I'm just saying, just because he founded something, it doesn't mean it's a guarantee for success, obviously.
Good point on Luxrare. Luxrare was, for people who don't know, like it was an OpenSea competitor back in 2021 when that mania took over. In the end, just I think it got a little bit of activity, but died a relatively quick death. To be honest, Blur came in and really vamped everything and kind of took all the activity. So good to point that out.
Exactly. But I think with Boop A, it's interesting to, well, come out with a token straight away to basically try to vampire attack people. I like this logic of saying, look, you don't want to trench, stake, and get all the tokens. But the realistic thing also is you need to then spend some time because of this extreme volatility. You can't come back once a month and see what has been launched and claim that and sell that. You'll probably still have to do it once a day because otherwise you might miss a lot of the volatility and of the unrealized gains. But with that being said, it's still 10 times more time efficient, obviously, than spending 10 to 12 hours in the trenches hunting the next runner. So if a meme season is really to come back at a large scale, I could see a protocol like this doing well. And then not everyone will do that, right? Not everyone will be on top of it and sell and claim everything, which is also good because then the sell pressure is being decreased, because otherwise you could make the argument it makes it a tiny bit harder for tokens to run if you know that all the stakers are on top of it and want to claim and want to dump to just take the profits. But that is, I would say, a problem that is balancing itself out very, very nicely. Unless you have like a huge staker who claims the lion's share of the rewards, and that person would be on top on dumping them all the time. But ultimately, I don't think this is realistic. We've seen how this has worked out with other projects, so I don't think that this sell pressure will be hindering tokens from running potentially.
I tell you what, so I was just thinking this because I was looking through my claimable stuff. So the way the system works, right? So I staked my 15,000 boop that I got from the airdrop. I have 2 portions that I can claim. The top one is just like straight up fees. Like I have 0.1 or 0.89 SOL that I can claim. Cool, that's fees. And then I have airdrops, which is denominated in SOL, an aggregate of everything that is individual tokens, right? So it's not like I'm constantly have a bunch of tokens thrown at me. That would be a tax nightmare because of US laws. That would actually suck really bad. What happens is you actually claim individual tokens that you're eligible for, right? So they have the logic on the background. So I can look through my list here of all of the tokens that I am eligible to claim, and basically all of them are down to like 0.00001 cents because they've all gone up, graduated, and then swiftly returned to zero, right? So I don't actually have to claim those things. I can just like forget them. I don't have to deal with the actual ledger updates of them because it's just like, fuck that, right? But Legendary's comments there are actually kind of interesting because I wonder if you could maximize your yield. Well, I know you can. If you maximize your yield by staying on top of this every single day, and whoever graduated, claim it at the top, sell it instantly. Claim it at the top, sell it instantly. Because most of this stuff, 99.9% is going to go to zero. And you could probably make a little bit more by doing that. But you also run the risk of one of these things being revived from the dead and then shooting up to a 250 million token from a meme 3 months from now, right? So it's like I think I am going to play on the side of like no maintenance, wait for the crazy runner story, revived token from the dead, and then claim and sell. Because I think you're probably better off catching the wildly popular one randomly than you are trying to maximize the extra 2 to 3% that you could get if you were to sell continuously daily.
Okay. You say you're going to do that, Brad, but I guess we're going to have to pressure you and remind you to press the sell button.
The first part's really easy for me. I'm not going to touch these fucking things. The second part,
I don't doubt you're going to ignore it for a few months. I believe you.
I've mastered that.
Yes. So let's answer it in half a year. We'll hear a story where Brett goes like, look, I did the math, and at the best point I had $1.8 million on my boop, but I didn't sell it.
It is not too dissimilar from my pups stuff. I bought pups back when it was worth zero. I held on to it for, I think, 6 months, a year, something like that. That I think it was like $1,000 buy turned into, I don't know, it was like a couple $100,000. Didn't sell. Guess how much it's worth today?
A couple thousand.
You are 20 grand, I think. I almost dumped it all to go into Boop whenever I was looking through my meme coin bags. It's just like this stuff wildly just goes everywhere, and it's like, yeah, it's whatever.
There we go. Let's learn from that lesson. We're not gonna repeat. We're gonna repeat that one. We're gonna.
That would have made my cycle.
To be honest, it's a good story. So If we repeat it, I don't mind.
Worth
because
it.
it's a good story. Very worth it for the content.
Yeah. The other
Okay.
thing, the one thing I want to say on this, like the thing that actually appealed to me is I think there's actually a large amount of this that is gameable, and I'm actually DM'd a few people, even like CBB, as like, let's do, we can automate this thing. Right, there's a daily boop drop that they have for incentives, right, and it's 100 or 1 million tokens, which at the time of writing was something like $300,000, $190,000, somewhere in that range, a couple $100,000. That daily is going to go to people that create tokens on the platform. If you look over the last 5 days, I think on May 4th, so yesterday, there were 57 tokens that graduated total. That means that for that 24-hour period on May 4th, yesterday, there was that entire pool, 1 million boop tokens, which was the, again, $200,000 roughly, split between 57 people plus the holders of the token, right? So if I were to automate this with my own capital and say, launch a coin, graduate the coin, launch a coin, graduate the coin, launch a coin, and I took this 57 number to 157 with purely my own stuff, that means I own 2/3 of the pool, right? So 10% of the again, we'll say $200,000 just to roughly give us a number. So 10% of the $200,000, which is 20 grand, would go to me. It'd go directly to me. So if I could automate it and minimize my loss to where it's like I roughly break even on the automation of graduating a token and selling back into the pool, then I could make $20,000 a day, roughly.
Yeah, I mean, this is outrageous alpha. I would suspect, without doing the maths, that you wouldn't want to increase the number that much. I suspect the cost on your side might be a bit high, but like, so long as that number stays quite low and you figure out the optimum number, like there's 100, I mean, even if you just did 1 or 2, when there's only 60 or so people participating in that game, it's like immediately profitable, right? And then
already
you have
next,
to kind of decide how far you want to push it.
And
yeah,
this is
that
right. So I did talk to
what is
someone.
it?
This is already happening. I did talk to someone who did the math, who knows how much it takes to graduate a token, what like the slippage of the loss that you incur would be when the threshold is where it basically does not pay off to push graduations above a certain number a day. It is so, also because you mentioned CBB, it is so similar, like conceptually, to what CBB did in optimizing blur rewards. So that I think Dingaling has to be aware of the fact, and 100% is aware of the fact, that if Boop is holding a certain threshold, that means a certain minimum activity on the platform will be guaranteed, because people will do exactly what Brett has described, because it just pays off to do that. So then that means that it's basically a marketing expense to keep the token at a certain level, to keep this minimum activity going. And if on top of that, the people who do that put in a bit of like quote unquote extra effort to not make a token called ABCD, BCDE, etc., but like actually try to come up with something that is a bit more memeable. And if you were to do this and you launch, I don't know, your 30, 40 tokens a day, why not put in the extra effort to try to maybe hit a runner once every couple 100 tokens that you launch? Maybe one runs, in a week. There was a person who did it. We talked about it in the show on Solana. All they did is launching, I think, I don't remember. They were up and launching meme coins for 8-10 hours a day on Pump.Find. Actually was a profitable endeavor. We did the math on that, or someone didn't really report it on it. So I think that is a smart concept, to just guarantee your platform is not dying and has a certain level of activity guaranteed because of the way the incentives are structured.
Yeah. But then I wonder whether the staking is worth it if every single one of them is a farmer getting their slice and then dumping the token before you get a chance to claim it and sell your slice, right? So this is the thing that people just have to keep an eye on. I think, like, if the whole point of having some upside in these tokens is that they're good tokens, it's like, oh, cool, I'm going to, these are runners, they're going to run and I'm going to get my slice. If they just go up to the point of graduation so that the people get their reward and it was their capital that did that, and then they just want to dump it back down to take their capital back, then the thing that your staking rewards or basically go back down to nothing, right? So definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah,
Go on, Brad.
I just realized my numbers are actually way smaller that for the person graduating than I actually thought. Because the split goes whenever a token graduates, they go and it gets qualified for this daily drop. The split of the daily drop goes 90-10, 90% to token holders, 10% to the creator. So solely being the person that creates it, I got that like 20K. But if I'm also the one buying my own tokens to graduate, that means I own basically all of my own supply, which means I own my portion of the 90% as well, right? Because I own all those tokens. Now, assuming that the question that is still open for discussion is they don't say how they're going to distribute to 90%, if it's market cap weighted or if it's literally just like raw tokens, right? So is one token because they're all the same market cap or because they're all the same token supply, or is it a market cap weighted like dollar percentage of the total 90% pool that exists to be on? So then that kind of incentivizes me to hold on to these things for a little bit as opposed to just immediately dumping them once they graduate, if you care. But yeah, the number is actually even bigger than the 20%, because that's the raw like static baseline of just like my portion of the 10%. If I can capture 2/3 of the pool. Yeah. So if you can automate it. Yeah.
Okay. I think all of that discussion, like we've obviously gone a little bit longer on that, but I think all of that is absolutely necessary to understand like the mechanics at play here, because if you don't know that people are creating it because that there's an incentive, then that's already going to skew your understanding of what's happening on the protocol. So I think we did a decent kind of 360 there on what's going on. So interesting stuff. We're definitely going to keep an eye on this, I think, because it's very interesting. It's cool to see some innovation in the meme coin space, which I think people had got at least a little bit sick of, in the sense that it was purely extractive. Now, okay, fine, maybe there are other way, someone's trying to extract still, right, as part of this process. But it feels like, okay, well, if you guys are extracting, then I'm staking, then I can participate in that. So a little bit of a change there, which I think at least is kind of captured people's imagination for a second. Right, we've got 3 other interesting headlines and we only have 8 minutes. So I'm just going to touch on the AI stuff from Tether. Then Brad can give a little explanation of what was going on with Solana. And then Ledge, I guess we'll touch on the meme coin stuff quickly towards the end. In fact, Ledge, do you want to just take we've been talking about meme coins. Do you want to just give a sense of what's going on the meme coin side and what went on with Elon? I think it's a quick one.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll keep it short. There is this meme coin called Gork, which is obviously a parody to the name of Grok, the AI living on X. And Elon Musk, or now Gorklon Rust, the new name, has changed both his name as well as his PFP to match Gork's PFP, and posted about that. I'm sharing this on screen saying, "Sup Gork, changed my PFP to yours. What do you think?" And obviously had a huge impact on the token that previously to that ranged anywhere between 30, 40, 50 mil. On that post, it did go up to 100 mil and is now trading at 67 mil. I think more important than those numbers is Elon kind of being back in the meme game, or at least noticing that stuff on his timeline. Obviously, a higher likelihood.
Teslas aren't selling, so he's got to pump some of these.
Because it's related to Grok, but also seeing that the market has appetite to then pump that to 100M, and it's not gone to 0, it's still at 67M.
Okay, I mean, I saw some people almost quite unappreciative, I guess, in some sense, but Elon tweeted the most famous person in the world, and it only went to 100-ish. I think it was a bit less than that, and then kind of pulled back to 65. So I don't know. Someone tweeted the price went up. We'll see where it goes. And I guess the headline always is, if he tweets, it goes up, and if he stops, then the attention goes away. So not a super sophisticated analysis required there, I don't think. Just bringing that to your attention. I'll do AI quickly. So this is the news from Tether, where they are expanding into its technological footprint with the launch of Tether AI. So this is pretty interesting. They're working on an open source AI runtime that aims to operate on any hardware or device and integrate with crypto payments. This is how AI agents are going to get involved from Tether's perspective. The founder, Paolo, said, "A fully open source AI runtime capable of adapting and evolving on any hardware and device, no API keys, no central point of failure, fully modular and composable, to enable USDT and Bitcoin payments. Tether AI tech will enable an unstoppable peer-to-peer network of billions of AI agents. Very interesting. So obviously, just a bit of background, Tether's the biggest stablecoin issuer. They have been expanding their reach into the world of artificial intelligence over the past few years. They've also invested an undisclosed amount in the German data center operator Northern Data in September 2023. This is also against the backdrop of Plasma, right? I've spoken about Plasma multiple times on the show, tweeted about it a bunch. That is their chain, which is, it's not officially their chain, but it's backed by them for all intents and purposes. I'm pretty sure you can call it their chain. It's going to be optimizing for everything for USDT. They're going to be turning USDT into a free, it's not a free token. It's they're going to turn the fees down to 0 for all USDT transfers. That is a two-front attack on basically other stablecoins and other chains. It's an attack on USDC by making Tether transactions on Plasma free, and it's an attack on ETH and Sol and Tron specifically because they're trying to attract the stablecoin TVL that is on all of those chains already and moving them over to Plasma. So I guess this AI agent infrastructure works quite nicely with the plans that they have for the chain. They're really going to be owning this full stack of tech. They've got the money itself, they've got the chain itself, and now they've got the AI infra as well. So that's how I would tie it all together. Brad, you are building a chain. Also, curious for your thoughts on the way I just tied that together, the AI stuff with the chain stuff. Any thoughts before we get into your Solana final piece of news last few minutes?
No, other than just like everyone is pretty confident in that automated, like AI is like the new interface, and it's like less and less things over time are going to be done like through us, like as humans directly with almost anything. And it's mostly going to be you talk to something with natural language and it goes and achieves it on the back end for you. I know a lot of people are skeptical of like giving those powers over your financial assets to someone else, but I think there's a huge confidence interval that it will saturate the market. And if you can become a place that is really conducive to enabling that activity, you will gather a lot of that activity, and it's beneficial. It's everyone wants fees, like everyone's just trying to capture the margins. They want usage, and I think the puck is going towards an autonomous world. So everyone's trying to make a play for it to some degree.
Indeed. Okay. I think that's enough on that. Just wanted to come to you, Brett, for this final piece of news, which I think didn't make too much noise on the timeline, though I'm sure it did in your circles.
Not in your circles, yeah.
That's what I said. I know they would have done in your circles. Maybe not as everyone else was trading meme coins, but I think this is really, really important. Just give us the quick breakdown of what happened on Solana, I think yesterday or the day before.
Yeah, this was the point of conversation over the weekend for the tech head argument circles. So the headline is Solana validators urgently fix bug, which could have led to unlimited minting of certain tokens. The bug itself was described as a 0-day found on April 16th and patched 2 days later, and it affected the ZK-El-Gamal proof program. And what that does is it verifies zero-knowledge proofs, enables confidential transfers of the SPL22 program. Now, what the attacker could have done was it could have minted unlimited tokens or stolen tokens from any user's account using sophisticated forged proofs. The problem that everyone saw with this is not that they solved a 0-day bug. That's good. What happened was the Ethereum ecosystem latched onto this as proof that Solana is nothing but a centralized entity. Now, the argument they had with that is that these validators colluded on the back end. And what had to actually happen, right, was like there's each of these nodes that run on a network, right? There's hundreds to thousands of these things inside of a blockchain. They run software. That software just like honors the rules of the chain, consensus, execution order, all that stuff, right? And the bug was in this program that you had installed. And they said, well, if all of the nodes up to 70% were able to upgrade overnight, communicate, and be able to even have the conversation to upgrade, then it shows that it is a centralized entity and that, you know, a small number of people control the outcome of like the entire network. And that is not a decentralized ecosystem, that it's not good. That's, all these things that are the antithesis of what blockchain is. So the pushback to that is from Toli, the founder of Solana, just that like, honestly, it's the same large entities that control both these networks. So whenever they did this upgrade, he said that you can point to the Lido validators, which makes up, Chorus One, P2P, a few others, Binance, Coinbase, Kraken, like all these large entities. They're actually make up the vast majority of most of these ecosystems, both Solana and Ethereum. Now, less so of Ethereum, but a decent portion of it. And it's just talking to these people to have them upgrade the thing to say, upgrade their software on their specific nodes and say, hey, you need to get out and do this stuff. So the Ethereum ecosystem really pounded the ground, threw up their flag and said, hey, you upgraded this stuff overnight silently. This is not the first time you've done this. You guys are centralized, blah, 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 blah. And Solana said, look, bros, the exact same thing would happen on Ethereum too. And like a lot of the pushback I saw was like, okay, there is a 0-day bug, right? Something that's hugely vulnerable that would jeopardize the assets of the entire chain. How would Ethereum go about updating this stuff? Are you just going to publish a open source GitHub and say, look, we have this vulnerability that can nuke our entire network. Please, everyone fix it. No, you're going to try to have that conversation in the back. You're going to try to update the software. You're going to try to patch it before the risk or the attack entity gains awareness of it, right? Because the second you publish it openly and say, hey, we have this problem, we need to fix it, they're going to do that thing and they're going to nuke the network and they're going to exploit it to the best of their abilities. So that's the full story. Personally, I think it's much ado about nothing. I think we are seeing as an industry that, like on the Ethereum side, I think Ethereum ecosystem is very self-conscious right now. And they're looking for any possible angle that they can gain on top of Solana. And this was an instance where they said, "Oh, haha, we got you." And ultimately, it's a nothing burger. And like they would have done the same thing, or roughly the same process would have carried out on Ethereum. And it's like everyone doing this virtue signaling of the like what they think is the best.
I very much agree with you. In the end, when something goes wrong, tech goes wrong sometimes. And I appreciate, I guess maybe the argument is that it goes wrong more on Solana. Maybe that would be the argument. But even still, if it does go wrong, you're going to get it done like as fast as possible. You're not going to broadcast it to everyone to let them know that something's going wrong and that everyone should try to play around with it or criticize it live in real time. So I definitely agree with your take there. Guys, that is go on, Brad. Close it off.
No, I was going to say like this is the pushback that Solana has always had against the Ethereum ecosystem, right? Because like the argument is like, oh, Ethereum cares so much about decentralization. They care so much. They do all this virtue signaling about whatever, but then they drove headlong into an L2 roadmap that has all of these chains run by single entities. Like if this same exploit was found on Coinbase, you know how many people you'd have to talk to so that Coinbase could update the clients on their one thing? One person. You'd have to send an email to Brian Armstrong and say, hey, update your thing. So like if you truly do care this much about this type of stuff, why are you going so hard into a roadmap that is counter to that belief system? So it's just funny.
Honest takes. Appreciate it. Good to hear both sides. I think that's it. We've gone a little bit over. That was a great show. I enjoyed the kind of deeper dive into Boop and to get into all these other little technical discussions as well. Just a reminder, guys, we do this every single day, Monday to Friday, 7 a.m. Eastern time for 1 hour live on X video, YouTube, Apple, and Spotify podcasts if you prefer to catch up in a more kind of downloaded fashion post show. Just a quick shout out to everyone in the comments. Twitter comments were kind of super active today. Green Smoke Studios 7. We had a bunch more Annex, lots of others in Shiv as well, DA Sales, Zach. Appreciate you guys. And just a final thing for you on the YouTube comments, Crypto Mochas joins us late. Says, I'm confused. Are we in a bear or a bull? Bitcoin, 95K, stock market, no more than 5% down off highs. It's not a bear. It's not a bear, but it's not going to save your alts, I don't think either. Thanks so much, Legendary and Brad, for joining as co-host as usual. Great discussion today. We hope you have a wonderful day. Take care, and we'll be back with you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye bye.